Hello. How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining me today for this not so cheery episode, but nevertheless fascinating as I dive into the subject of what is got to be America's greatest atrocity, or at least, man, I mean, I guess I can think of a few, but this might take the cake. Slavery in America. Definitely the biggest stain on American history, in my opinion, and that's putting it lightly. And who better to learn it from than the slaves, the ex-slaves themselves? This is fascinating to me. I had never even considered that there's recordings of freed slaves out there. So I'm extremely interested in seeing this video. It's by John Brooks. Link down below. Recordings of ex-slaves in the USA.
6 years ago, I posted a clip of a 1999 ABC News story on voice recordings preserved by the Library of Congress. These recordings were actual voices of Black Americans who were slaves in the United States.
Okay.
The video
I thought that's what I was watching right now.
got over
This is like Inception. He's got the video pulled up
10
on the
million
video.
views and 500,000 comments.
Oh,
But
wow.
YouTube forced me to take it down in order to stay in line with their new policies. So I'm now
I see he set it to private. Okay.
reposting it with a brief commentary and explanation.
Got it. Okay, so he needed to add some commentary for it to be fair use, I think, is what I'm hearing. Interesting. So this original video actually had 10 million views.
I'll have more thoughts at the end of the recording, so I'd like you to weigh in on the conversation once again. Thank you.
But John
Okay.
Henry Faulk may have experienced the most profound effect. He was a graduate student when he interviewed the former slaves, including the two women you hear in this broadcast. Himself interviewed just before he died in 1979, Faulk was going on about how he believed in giving blacks the right to go to school, giving them the right to vote, giving them the right to go into anything they qualified for.
Okay.
And then he said he experienced an epiphany.
I was sitting out on a wagon tongue with this old black man and was telling him what a different kind of white man I was. I remember him looking at me very sadly and kind of sweetly.
I just had to say that it's remarkable that still, hundreds of years later, you still hear, this type of talk, oh, I'm a different kind of white guy. Like, it's, wow. What a horrible thing slavery did to this country's discourse, and it will forever, I don't know if it can ever be fully resolved.
Man I was. I remember him looking at me very sadly and kind of sweetly and condescending and said, you still got the disease, honey. I know you think you're cured, but you're not cured. You can't give me the right to be a human being. I'm born with that right. Now, you can keep me from having that. If you've got all the policemen and all the jobs on your side, you can deprive me of it.
Wow.
But you can't give it to me, because I was born with it just like you was.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty remarkable right off the bat right there. That's pretty profound. So they were saying, hold on, you're telling me all these things you're going to give me as if it's a gift or something. Those were things that were taken from them. So to give it back is not, it's you got to be careful with how you word things.
My God, it had a profound effect on me. I was furious with him. But the more I reflected on it, the more profoundly it affected me. And I realized this was where it really was.
Tell you the truth.
They said, you can't, it's not up to you. I'm not looking to you to give me something. I already had it. I was born with it. Very amazing.
Today, I don't know how I'm living.
I remember that just as well. Look like to me, I can.
Been slaves all our lives, and mother was a slave, and sister was a slave, father was a slave.
They know nothing about reading right. All that I know, that
I have to take off these captions. They're getting in the way of the captions.
Teachers mind your master and your missus.
Wow.
Mom and them didn't know where to go. You see, after she to go, just like he turned something out, you know, didn't know where to go.
Mama and them didn't know where to go. That's something I've thought about too. It's crazy, huh? I mean, what do you even do? Your whole life has been set up as a slave, and you're free now. Okay, I'm free, but what now? Like, I can't even imagine being in that position.
They are haunting voices from the past, not actors reading a script or scholars reading a text, but the actual voices of men and women, Americans, who were born in slavery.
My name is Fountain Hughes. I was born in Charlottesville, Virginia. My grandfather belonged to Thomas Jefferson. My grandfather was 115 years old when he died. And now
100 years old when he died? 100 what?
Father was 115 years old
150. Maybe 115? That would still be remarkable.
when he died.
What?
And now I am 101 years old.
Oh my God. 101-year-old.
Some people didn't have no beds when they were slaves. People slept on the floor. Pallet here, pallet there. Just like a lot of wild people. We didn't know nothing. Didn't like to look at no book.
Harriet Smith.
And that's part of what, yeah. I mean, okay, you're free now, but we've deprived you of an education. What?
Remembering
This is unreal.
what she saw as a small girl during the final days of the Civil War.
Talk about another controversial topic right there.
I stood on that picket fence all day long, seeing them soldiers going back to San Antonio and different places. Colored soldiers in Joe. That's right along by our house. Our home.
I guess being a soldier is one obvious. Were slaves soldiers? I'm sure they probably were, huh? They were probably, but that would also be an obvious option for someone being freed of slavery is, I guess, hey, go fight in the military. Great.
Two-story house, a white folk.
These recorded memories were among thousands of interviews done with ex-slaves in the 1930s and 40s.
Can you remember slavery days very
Of
well?
course, I remember all our white folk, and all the names of them, all the children. Call every one of the children's names.
Who did you belong to?
Jim Button, the baby boy.
How messed up. I hate hearing that. Who did you belong to? To who did you belong?
The results of these digitally enhanced recordings are arresting, almost unbelievable. The idea of hearing the voices of actual slaves from the plantations of the Old South is as powerful, as startling really, as if you could hear Abraham Lincoln or Robert E. Lee speak. Listen again to Fountain Hughes, who was born in 1848.
We were slaves. We belonged to people. They sell us like they sell horses and cows and hogs and all like that. Have an auction bench, and they put you up on the bench and bid on you, the same as bidding on cattle,
Much of what these three former slaves say may at first seem unremarkable. Much of what they say may surprise and upset, and their calm demeanor is at odds with the evil and violence we associate with slavery. Here is 91-year-old Texan Laura Smalley talking in the 1940s about the outcome of a tussle between two women, one black, one white, one slave, one mistress. The mistress...
That's a dangerous situation, huh? To get into a tussle.
Tried to slap the slave, but the black woman pushed her into a chair. Laura Smalley was a girl at the time, but she remembers vividly what happened to the black woman when the master came home.
But I think that old woman poor old woman carried in the peach orchard and whipped her. And, just tied her hand this way, around the peach orchard tree. I remember that just as well. Looked like to me, I can. And round the tree.
Nowadays, if you treated your dog like this, you'd be arrested. It's just unbelievable to think this is real. And it is, obviously.
And whipped her. And, well, she couldn't do nothing but just kick her feet, just kick her feet. But it just had her clothes off down to her waist, Just didn't have her plumb naked, but they had her clothes down to her waist. And every now and then they'd whoop her, and then snuff the pipe out on her, snuff pipe out on her. The embers in the pipe. Where you ever see the pipe smoking. Blow them out on.
Just pure evil, huh? And you can imagine they just took out all their anger. Any misstep that they perceive, they take out all their anger out on you. And they don't even see you as a real person.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord.
The plantation on which Smalley was a slave sounds brutal. She recalls scrambling with other children for food from a huge wooden tray, like a hog trough.
All of them, would get around that tray with spoons and eat, such like mush or soup or something like that. And all of them children get around there and just eat.
Fountain Hughes tells his interviewer about the relentless round of work for him on a
I can't even imagine what they fed them. That is
Virginia plantation.
horrible.
Night never comes out. You have nothing to do. Time to cut tobacco. If they want you to cut all night long out in the field, you cut. And if they want you to hang all night long, you hang tobacco. It didn't matter about your tired, being tired, you're afraid to say you're tired.
It was cotton, not tobacco, that solidified slavery, though. The invention of the cotton gin at the end of the 18th century made its processing easy, but the crop still needed enormous amounts of unskilled labor. Control of the slave and his labor through laws and regulations became paramount. Fountain Hughes talks about one of those controls, the pass system.
Now, I couldn't go
What?
from here, across the street, or I couldn't go to nobody's house without I have a note or something from my master. And if I had that pass, that was what we call a pass. If I had that pass, I could go wherever he sent me.
What a demeaning way to live. You need a pass, like you're a child in school. But worse.
And I'd have to be back. Whoever he sent me to, they'd give me another pass, and I'd bring that back, so to show how long.
Wow.
Even emancipation didn't truly free the slaves. Freedom freed slaves for more travail. The end of the Civil War found many cast adrift without skills and no place to go. And the Yankees who freed them weren't always seen as benevolent liberators.
I remember when the Yankees come along and took all the good horses and took sold all the meat and flour and sugar and stuff out in the river and let it go down the river. And they know the people wouldn't have nothing to live on, but they done that.
Purposely trying to set them up for failure and death.
The ex-slaves left one hell for another, perhaps an even more dangerous one. No longer property, they didn't have the protections afforded property.
When we were slaves, we couldn't do that. See? And if we got free, we didn't know nothing.
Well, their masters, which is a disgusting word, but, they'd keep them alive just to exploit them and steal their labor. So once they're no longer allowed to steal their labor, they didn't see any reason to help keep them alive, huh?
And my mother, she hunted places and bound us out for $1 a month, but we didn't have no property, we didn't have no home. We had nowhere, nothing, we didn't have nothing on it, just like the cattle, we just turned out and get along the best you could.
Holy crap.
Mobile games are going big.
Yeah, okay.
Clash.
In Texas, the slaves weren't told they were free until 2 months after the war ended. Smalley remembers that her masters gave the slaves a dinner, and then they were free.
I don't know how the other side of the folks know freedom. We didn't know. They just thought
How would you know? Yeah, it's crazy.
we're just feeding us, Them didn't know where to go. You see, after freedom broke, just like he turned something out, Didn't know where to go. But just where to stay. Didn't know where to go. Turn us out just like, you turn out cattle.
In the narratives, the slaves used an interesting phrase for the end of slavery. They say, when the break.
Now I'm wondering, what did all these cotton farmers do? Did they just close up shop? Oh, well, we can't enslave people anymore, so we're going to have to figure out something else. Like, you could have just paid them to work. I know that's a novel idea.
Came. Good times, easy times were not at hand. The trials for millions of black Americans didn't end in 1865. They continued. Laura Smalley and her family became sharecroppers. Harriet Smith's first husband was killed by whites during the Reconstruction, probably because of his political organizing. Fountain Hughes went north to Baltimore and worked at numerous jobs, including hauling manure. Not an enviable job, but it was the job of a free man.
So there's a few points I'd like to make. First of all, John Henry Faulk.
I mean, it's amazing what the difference is in dignity just as a human being of at least being a free man, even if you have the exact same job, or in this case, he was hauling manure. It's just the fact that you are free. That makes a big difference.
So there's a few points I'd like to make. First of all, John Henry Faulk died in 1990, not 1979. Second, the Texas slaves were freed 2 years after the end of slavery, not 2 months.
2 years. Holy crap. 2 years. I mean, I guess it's one thing for them to be free on paper, but it doesn't matter until the authorities actually start enforcing it, which apparently they didn't do in Texas for 2 years.
It just goes to show you that mainstream media didn't and maybe still doesn't care about getting the facts correct. Also, the statement about former slaves being unskilled is not true and a bit condescending. These interviews were part of the federal...
That's an interesting point. Obviously, their skills are in whatever they learned in whatever jobs they were doing, for the most part. And people have natural, learned skills just being human. I wonder I wish he would expand on that a little bit. It's an interesting point.
Federal Writers Project, which interviewed a lot of...
But I think it's fair to say, they didn't go through an education system, so they didn't have the skills that would greatly benefit those who did.
People after the Great Depression in the United States. The interviewers were discovering that a lot of the black people they were interviewing were former slaves. So the Slave Narrative Project was an afterthought of the Federal Writers Project and defunded a few years later. It pains me to think of all the stories we missed out on. Leave your comments. Thanks for listening.
We were slaves. We belonged to people. They sell us like they sell.
How's the chicken?
Quiet. Holy crap. That was heavy stuff. Unbelievable to hear it straight from real people's voices. I did not know that was on recording. Oh, man. Well, hopefully I didn't say anything too stupid or offensive. I hope you guys have a good day. I think I'm just going to end it there. I'll see you tomorrow.